Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Training, Learning, and Development community. Happy New Year to you. Thanks for joining us. First broadcast of the year. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm like, is it actually a new year? I don't know. It's just everything seems to be just one big long experience nowadays. But I am very excited about things that we have going on ahead of us, like in the schedule for TLDC. Like, for instance, this month we have that teacher to instructional design event that's happening at the end of the month. We've got writing for instructional design that's happening at the end of the month as well, and a bunch of other stuff planned. So 2022 is already looking really, really good. And to help me start it off, we've got Kushal Bose. Now, Kushal, we haven't been able to talk much, so I don't even know if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Does that sound right, or how do I pronounce your name?
You did it exactly like my mother does, so you're very close.
That is great. Thank you. That's I'm even impressed with myself. And so today we're going to be talking with Kushal about future of learning for the next generation, but specifically more about storytelling, because that is something that Kushal is an expert in, and also using video for that. And so we've got about 30 minutes, running a little bit late this morning, but we'll get into it and cover as much as we can. Now, Kushal, you sort of found TLDC. I know that I think you might have had a producer or somebody that kind of booked your appearance here with us today. I'm always interested in bringing in people that are sort of outside of what is our typical community to have conversations with. So, thanks for doing that. But let's hear about your background. I watched that HCI video. You recently did an appearance with Human Capital Innovations, and you talked a lot about your background there, but maybe you can just tell the audience a little bit about who you are. You've kind of got a heavy interest in the humanities, but also at the same time, I don't know, I saw you have a background in nuclear engineering and other things. So let's hear about that. Give us the quick rundown of who you are.
Very quickly, I don't want to put too much time into me. I think my background has a lot to do with what I'm doing today and what I bring to the table. And because I was born in a family where my mother was a professional singer and my father was a chemical engineer of a good standing in the whole world, actually. So I grew up with the left side and the right side of the brain syndrome, where I was in the company of great musicians, great filmmakers, great theater artists and dramatists, and very great language professors. At the same time, my dad taught me engineering, and I went to engineering school. While I was the president of the Film Society in my college, president of the drama club, music club. So I had really both sides of my interests really nurtured during my adolescent years. So when I graduated from engineering college, I came to America to do my master's, and I immediately found a job with Westinghouse Electric right here in Chicago, and they sent me to nuclear engineering school, and I became a nuclear engineer. For the next 10 years, I built nuclear power plants, all over the world, but mostly in the United States and the West Coast. But after 10 years, the bug that bit me early in my life about art, about literature, about music, started to show up in my mirror and said, Kushal, where are you? You're getting to be 38, 39. So I left my engineering and I moved to New York, and I got my master's degree in film and theater. And I loved it so much that I immediately got an invitation from Indian government to shoot some documentaries in India, to do some social changes with television. And I did that for a couple of years, and I came back and then started this company that I run now. The confidence in my heart was that I can always go back to engineering if I wanted to. But my effort was to really combine my engineering knowledge and my education and the art of storytelling and film. That's what Teledec did for the last 30-some years. And and pretty soon we had a lot of companies, especially in the Chicago area, most of the technical and engineering company who came to me who had the technical content. I was the guy one of the very few instructional designers or learning developers who could read blueprints, who can talk to the engineers in their language, and I could look at the CAD/CAM files or the manuals. So I was able to get that content into a discernible sixth grader level, telling the stories. That's my story.
Wow. No, that's great. That's incredible. Amazing stuff. I love it. And so you have been doing and using video for a really long time. You've got a extensive background with film. Nowadays, everybody's got a smartphone on them. So basically they've got potentially, especially in the last couple of years, a 4K capable, film camera to be able to film video and do all of that stuff now. How about for you? When did you start leveraging using video to train people?
Very early, very, very early. In fact, back in those days, 30 years ago, there was no video. It was all my 16 millimeter camera.
Mm-hmm.
I shot one of the earliest films that I did was for McDonald's Corporation, who is right here in Oak Brook, Illinois, outside of Chicago. They're in my backyard. From the moment that you walk into a McDonald's restaurant, McDonald's franchise, to the point when your food is delivered, the whole training was done by my company and me. And this was all shot on, McDonald's had a studio. It was a replication of McDonald's, just exactly how. So we put our actors and lighting and camera and dolly and crane in that studio, and we shot the whole thing with actors and actresses. But we emulated a real environment with customers coming in, people who had language disability, people who have eating. Back in those days, how do you treat a customer? So customer service is what we did back in those days. I'm talking about early 90s, late 80s.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So you've been doing it for a while.
16 millimeter back then.
Jeez.
But in school, I learned how to light, how to use camera, how to do a dolly shot or a zoom. What's the language of cinema? That's what I knew, I learned in school, and that's what I used when I shot my documentaries and all of this. So I brought that part into, so it's today, the automation of these phones doesn't really give you the controls of the aperture or the speed or the movement. You just point and shoot. It's an idiot-proof system. But back then we needed to control all the variables, which was a lot of fun.
Wow. Yeah. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about how it has changed over the last 20 years. Now, I'm sure, you've probably got a team of directors and producers or people that actually create the content for you now, but it must be a completely different experience. Can you talk about now, like what the types of things that you do as a video producer?
Actually, video can be of many, just like anything else, can be of many different levels. You can I have shot videos, training videos with my cell phone, and completely unedited version, and put it up on the server to an internal crowd of operators, and then move the camera around, zoom in. Not even, this doesn't really have a proper zoom.
Right.
So I moved the camera single-handedly to the contact, to the switches, to the relays whenever we're talking about them as the narration is going on. But today, I think the use of video is massive. Everybody uses video, but I think what's missing in these videos is the art of storytelling, the purpose, if you will, the structure. just by pointing a camera and shooting and clicking the on button doesn't make it a good video. You really have to absorb the content, and how does the video bring that content up on the viewer screen is what you really have to talk about, which is why I'm a big proponent of script writing and storyboarding. I have very early on was under the influence of great filmmakers who did all the pre-production in the controlled environment of his desk, and when they got to the shooting, he shut off the brain. He just followed the script. This is the way that I was taught filmmaking. So all the imagination, all the things. So that's really feature and documentary film, not so much documentary, but feature films. But I have that discipline in me that every shot, every video that I shoot is pre-planned. Nothing is instantly, let me do this, let me take that. Of course, there is a place for that. I mean, if you are in a factory where you have never been before and you have to shoot a machine, you cannot plan that shot sitting in your on your desk. But the story, how it's going to begin and how it's going to end and what the takeaway, that has to be completely in your head. What are we shooting? What's the purpose of the video? So the video has to complement the purpose of the piece, and that's something that you really need to learn, to read, to practice that. How does the video complement your content?
No, it sounds like it's critical to the situation. Sounds so important. And this audience is primarily like, I can see right now, I'm seeing a whole bunch of instructional designers, learning experience designers that are live in our stream right now. But how much time do you think would you recommend someone spend storyboarding? Like, how much effort should they really put into it before they get in there and actually start doing like the video production or creation?
Before I answer that question, I want to tell you that I today believe to really shorten the length of the video as much as you can. 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. Really, there's a name for it, is micro learning. And I really strongly believe that the little chunks of learning is much more effective than long videos. That ties into your question, is that how much time you into storyboarding is really how long is your finished product is going to be. So if you're if I can take a half an hour course and break it down to 4 or 5 5-minute courses or 6-minute course module, I will do that. And for that reason, and just like YouTube video, when you watch one video, there's a bunch of other suggestions come on your screen. My e-learning modules also work like that. When you're watching a video, bunch of other suggestions come in related to what you just watched. In other words, there's a continuity. What I'm trying to say is there's a continuity between what you're watching and what you're about to watch. You may want the optional watching. So with that framework, I would really create small videos, but at the same time, create a story along from each, just like a chapter in a book. The first chapter has to have some context to the second chapter and the third chapter, and the story progresses. And that's the way I do videos nowadays. I don't do a long video. I don't, and for each of those short 4, 5, 6-minute videos, I don't spend much time in storyboarding. I usually, this is something that's very important for your listeners. I would always start writing, creating the storyboard from the viewer's point of view. In other words, what am I seeing now? What's the next thing? How does the shot 1 relate to shot 2 and shot 3? How does it connect to them? So when you write it on paper, it becomes very evident to you how those, it's almost like a string of pearls in a necklace, that how do you weave the story? And then how does it go forward? So in a short film or short video, I think you can manage it much more effectively than you can do on a longer piece. And there is such a thing, Louis, is that there's a linear way of telling stories and there's a non-linear way of storytelling. The linear way of storytelling, there's always a start, there's always a middle, always an end. It's just linear. The story progresses and the video progresses according to a linear fashion. But in many cases today, because of the distance learning being a prime driver in our learning and development field, you really have to pay attention to how you're designing the story so that you're engaging the learner into doing something. So which means that you're putting hotspots, you're reading interactivity, you're reading polls or questions. So when you do that, your video becomes interactive, become non-linear, because you have no control over what the viewer is going to be, learner is going to be clicking on next. So your story must have the ability to continue with the story, even though it's out of order. Am I making sense?
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, and this kind of brings me to my next question for you, because, when we had first connected, we wanted to talk about the future of learning for the next generation. And when I think about the next generation, I think about, I have a 7-year-old and his buddies, his all the, and kids nowadays, and looking the other day at, number one most downloaded apps on the in iTunes, like in the top 10 for the last couple of years. Actually, the number one for the last couple of years has been something like TikTok. And how has that kind of affected, or has it affected the way that you look at producing video, or is that something that you take into account as you start to design video content, video training content for the younger, for the next generation?
I plead the fifth. I don't know much about. I don't know much about TikTok, and I really have not looked at it seriously as a tool for learning and development.
Right.
But I understand TikTok is very, very popular. I get texts all the time from funny videos.
Right.
A lot of them made in Korea and China.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, I want to address that bigger question behind your question, and that is, what do we do to the next generation to really attract them to learning? See, I strongly believe in my heart that you cannot learn anything unless you want to learn. I really strongly believe. So as instruction designer, our job is to, how do you make them want to learn? How do you motivate them to learn? By telling them stories. Stories for thousands of years have captivated the minds and the culture. For 5,000 years, that's how we have our societies have grown. So I think that there are three factors that influence our mindset right now, looking at the future. And those three factors are, I call it a perfect storm. And the perfect storm, if you remember, in the 80s, was it happened in, actually reality, it happened in Boston area. There was a high pressure system in upstate California developed in the atmosphere that moved toward the East Coast. There was a low pressure system from Saskatchewan and the Northeast Canada that moved toward Boston. And there was a tornado and a hurricane developed in Florida that's also moved toward Boston. These three, it never happens that all three converge on the same area at the same time. So that's called a perfect storm. In today's learning and development, there is a perfect storm. And the perfect storm is number one is our millennials, your 6-year-old, 7-year-old. How do you bring them to the table? How do you captivate their imagination? How do you grab their attention? We learned from PowerPoint and bullet text point for hours and hours sitting in a classroom. It's not going to work with them. So that's number one element of the perfect storm is the audience has changed completely. And they're born with the cell phone in their hand, and they are totally great, technically adept to all kinds of apps and all that. So number one. Number two is the technology has leapfrogged into artificial intelligence, virtual reality, augmented reality, and all kinds of even learning management systems are amazing today that it's customizable. So that's the second part of the perfect storm is technology has completely has overtaken our lives. And the third part is COVID. What COVID forced us to do is go to distance learning. And today, classroom learning is becoming very quickly extinct. So when you combine these through the audience, the technology, and the distance learning, you have a new set of rules that govern your design. So now coming back to your question is that how do you teach? How do you the 6 or 7-year-old? And I think keeping that in mind. So that's why I said keep it short, keep it dumb, keep it stupid, and not to the level of TikTok, of course. But if you really need to break it down, break it really, really down to the lowest common denominator, and frequently engage the student into the screen. And this is, I really, really think that today's instructional designer have a great opportunity. This is their lifetime opportunity to change the rules, to do something different, which is what I have been trying to do for the last 30 plus years. Bringing cinema into learning. My shoots always were very, very creative, if you will. My scripts, I scripted and storyboarded all my shoots, all my corporate videos, all my learning videos, all my technology videos. I did a lot of animation. I had a silicon graphics farm in my studio with lots of animation, lots of imagination. Again, combining stories and imagination into the technical content. So because I rarely speak to an audience of learning instruction designer, I want to really challenge them into thinking differently about how do they teach to a 6-year-old or a 10-year-old kid. It's their conventional corporate audience is gone.
Right.
So that's number one. And how do you take advantage of the technology? For example, today's learning management systems, I try to measure motivation, eagerness to learn, their participation. You can really build you can structure your video or your piece, your learning piece, by making them want to click. The key is wanting to click. When you want to click, then you can capture the click in the LMS and see who clicked and who didn't. If you give a bunch of, and the whole, you can really understand the personality. And most important thing is the behavior of the learner. Mm-hmm. You have to understand the behavior and the match your design accordingly. Designers have a very great opportunity to change thinking in today's instructional designers.
Right. No, if there's one thing the last couple of years have taught me, it's that we're in a period where innovation is probably what's going to help everyone thrive. If you're willing to innovate, then I think that, and actually make mistakes, then I think you'll actually, be able to grow and be more dynamic and match these crazy times that we have now. There's a lot of opportunity there for everybody that is willing to shift a little bit to
from
match.
what they have been doing so far.
Right, right.
But when you say innovate, I want to add a little 2 words in there: innovate with a purpose.
Right. Yeah.
So
No, that's great.
just don't innovate for the purpose of innovating because it looks pretty. It doesn't work. What does it add? What's the value that innovation add to the content that you're creating? That's, to me, is the key.
I love it, Kushal. Thank you. Now I do have let's see, one question so far in the ask a question area, and this sort of like relates a little bit to what you were just talking about. Your thoughts on using animated video creation, like tools is like Beyond or whiteboarding tools. Do you have any experience with that? Yeah.
Yes. Again, we are talking about technology. I think that's a great way to really create a storyboard or to prepare for your final, if you can afford the time to create the animated video. Today's the whiteboarding tool are fantastic, and they really, and I think that there's some low cost whiteboarding tool also that can really add a lot to the table. Again, I want to caution the designer not to be artistic, but to be purposeful. Mm-hmm. In other words, every screen, every shot that you bring must support your learning objectives some way or another. Just don't create a whiteboard just to make it pretty, if you will. But yes, I love it, and I think it should be made more popular, especially with the Wacom tablet. When you have the tablet at your disposal to really storyboard with the whiteboarding tool, and you can animate them very inexpensively. Those are great tools to have.
No. Thanks for the question. Chris Johnson asked that one, and just so you know, Chris, I'm gonna try to get Beyond on here more because I was talking to him last year. I love the folks at Beyond, and so hopefully we'll have them here at TLDC to talk a little bit more about animation and such. Well, Kushal, it's been a real pleasure having you on. I'm really glad that we got to make the connection and that you're getting to meet the training, learning, and development community. We have a fantastic group here. Really just authentic, lovely people in this community. And I'm glad that you were able to spend some time with us this morning.
My pleasure. My pleasure. It's my pleasure.
All right, everybody.
If you have any other opportunity to talk about any other subject, I'll be happy to come and join you.
I would love to talk more about storytelling with you because that's actually a passion of mine, and that's sort of one of the intents of the training, learning, and development communities to tell the story of instructional designers. And we do that on a regular basis. In fact, I have Ian Crook on tomorrow for another showcase where we're going to talk about Ian's journey into instructional design, what he's up to now. He is a trainer over at Amazon Web Services. So we'll be talking to him tomorrow. And with that, we're going to be signing off. Kushal, would love to have you back on. And everyone, thanks a lot. Looking forward to seeing you all throughout the new year. And
thank you all.
Yeah, we'll talk to you later.
Happy New Year to everybody, my fellow instructional designers. Thank you.
Take care. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.